Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. In this video, I'm going to make a spooky scene perfect for this time of year. Hope you enjoy. So I started this card with a piece of paper that's 5.5 inches square, and the finished card will be 6 inches. And the first thing I did was I stamped the Fairy Town stamp on the right hand side of the background. And this is a great stamp to color in, and because I'm going to be ink blending, I need to mask it. So I'm going to stamp it again on some of the Lavinia Stamps masking sheets, which are perfect for masking larger stamps like these. So I'm just going to stamp it on here, and then I can cut it out off camera. Once I've cut it out, I can remove the backing plastic, and then I need to put it over top of the stamped image. Now, because this stamp is quite detailed and it has small areas like the post, I need to make sure that it's perfectly lined up so that none of the areas get ink on them. So I'm just going to take some time to make sure that it's perfectly lined up before I can add some ink on the background. Now I wanted to do something a little bit different on this card and give it a kind of a spooky Halloween feel. So I used my VersaFine Clair inks to ink blend over the background. I started with the lightest blue. This is the Bally blue, and I blended it over the focal points underneath the sign there, and then over the sky in the center where I want the moon to be. And I used the smallest of the Lavinia Stamps moon masks, and I'm just holding it up here so you can see. I wanted the moon to be blue, so I just ink blended over that area, and then I can add some more ink around the mask. Next, I went to the Warm Breeze and put this around the moon mask. And then I kind of put some of it around where the Bally blue ink is. And I worked with the variety of blue colors that I have that are VersaFine Clair inks. So this is the Paradise ink, and I put this behind the sign there and again around the moon, and then just gradually filling in the background with it. I put some along the bottom here as well. And then the last blue ink I used is the Medieval blue. And I just blended this around the corners and then around on the left side of the card here where the witch is going to be. Now, as you can tell, this ink acts differently than Distress inks or Elements inks. So it's a little bit different to blend it. You need to apply a lot more pressure, so that's why I find using these sponges helpful. But you can get a nice blend, and the colors are so rich, so it's perfect for this spooky card. So I'm just going back and forth between the Paradise and the Medieval blue here. And then I'm going to go back to that Warm Breeze and the Bally blue. The only thing you need to be careful of with this ink is that you can never go back to a lighter color. You can always make it darker, but you can't make it lighter. So make sure that area with the Bally blue, you don't put too much of the darker colors in that area. So once that's completely blended, I'm going to take a mat for behind my card and blend some of that Medieval blue around the edges. This is 6 by 6 inches. And this will be perfect for the outside of my scene. Now I'm going to remove the moon mask and that fairy towns mask. And you can see they look stunning on that dark background. Now I'm going to add some mist, some white pigment ink, but before I do that, I need to stamp my main image. This is the witch from Lavinia Stamps. Her name's Faba, and I'm going to stamp her on the left side of the sign, like she's studying the sign and trying to decide where to go. And with all the ink that's on that background, I'll just give this a few seconds before I remove the acrylic block, just to make sure I have a good impression there. Now for my mist on the background, I'm going to use some white pigment ink. This ink is called Brilliance ink, and the color is Moonlight White. And I like to keep my white inks white, so instead of using it directly on my blending tool, I'm going to stamp it onto my craft mat. And using a small brush, I'm just going to apply some around the moon here. And I should mention that when you use this white ink, it does, not only does it look great, but it also interrupts your stamping. So if you were to stamp with some Nocturne or black pigment ink on top, you won't get that rich black color. So this is why I suggest that you stamp the witch first rather than stamping her on top of the white ink. And I just put a lot of the white ink around the bottom of the witch because I want it to look like she's floating or there's mist around her and give it this spooky look. And I've also got some around the edges and around that moon. It looks nice and spooky, perfect for this time of year. Now I'm going to put some around the edges as well and around the bottom of the sign and just wherever I think it looks good. It helps to break up that ink and it would be perfect for clouds as well. So once that white pigment ink is dry, I'm just going to go in and add a second coat, and this way I get a nice rich white color. And I'll just continue with that until I'm happy with the results. Next, I'm going to stamp the tree branch stamp with Nocturne ink, and I'm going to stamp this around the edges. And as you can see, the areas where there's white pigment ink, you do get a slightly grayish or lighter impression. But I really like that effect because it goes with the whole spooky theme of this card. And I love this stamp. I'm sure you've seen me use it many times if you've watched other videos on my channel. But it's such a versatile stamp because you can just rotate it and get a tree branch from the right or the left or the bottom of the top of the scene. I'm also going to add some second generation stamping. So I'm stamping on a piece of paper off camera and then adding those lighter impressions behind these branches as well, just to help to fill out the scene. Now once I'm happy with all those tree branches, I'm going to color in the sign and some of the details on the witch. And I used Copic markers for this, and then I'm going to add some white from the lantern towards the signpost because I want the yellow from the lantern to shine upon the sign. I want it to add some yellow ink, but if I add it directly to the blue I could get green, so I'm going to add the white first and then add some Distress Oxide ink, which will sit on top of that white ink, and you get this beautiful light yellow glow onto the Fairy Towns sign. Now, while I was doing this, I thought it would be quite clever if the sign was easier to read on the left-hand side where the torch or the lantern is shining. So what I did is I went back with my Copic markers and darkened the sign on the right-hand side so that the left-hand side of the sign closest to the lantern is brighter. And I thought this was quite effective. And then I just blended that with my lighter brown marker. And you can see how it looks like the witch is reading the sign now. I really love this soft glow from the lantern, and I think it's perfect for this spooky card. So now that I've got that finished, I'm going to put a piece of black paper over that medieval blue that we blended earlier. This black paper is 5 3/4 inches square, and then I can put my beautiful scene on top so that I've got a double frame. And then I'm going to use one of the heartfelt verses stamps. This one says birthday wishes, and I'll stamp it and put it on a bit of black card, and then I can put that at the bottom of my scene here. And then I can put this whole thing onto a 6 by 6 inch card base. Now I thought because this was a spooky card, I should do something different on the inside. So I put a bit of masking tape onto the left-hand side, and I decided to stamp all the images with that medieval blue, and then use a second generation stamp and stamp them on the inside like a watermark so that I can write my sentiment and my greeting over top of this spooky watermark. And I just used the main stamps, so the fairy town and the witch and then that tree branch. And I didn't want it to be too dark, so that's why I used second and in some cases third generation stamping, so it's light enough that you can easily write on top. And now you can see the finished card with that spooky watermark on the inside. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video inspiring. If you haven't already, please subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!